Brad, what would it mean to win this game at the weekend and qualify for the quarterfinals?
What would it mean? I think it's be the opportunity for us to get into the knockout stages of the competition. So, what's in front of us right now is a great opportunity. I think the work we've done in the previous games has set us up for this, but these next two games being in Europe is really important for us and for us to do well in every competition we play in. So we're looking firmly now, putting that last 3-game block behind us and looking at the next 2 games is really important for us.
What have you made of this competition this season?
The European competition?
European Challenge Cup, yeah.
Yeah, no, we've thoroughly enjoyed it. We've had a couple of trips out to France, which is always good for a side in terms of getting able to spend that time together as a group of players and also test your away day mentality. And I think we've come through those challenges in a positive light. I think we've put some good performances in Europe, and I think more importantly we've just been able to build and maintain the momentum that we've shown through the league into this campaign as well.
Do you feel, Brad, that you've got the depth, to challenge on 2 if not 3 fronts over the rest of the season?
I believe we're developing our depth. Whether that's going to be enough to challenge on 2 fronts or 3 fronts, only time will tell. But we're definitely developing our squad depth and giving the guys enough game time in which they have the opportunity to sort of showcase themselves and also implement themselves into the way we want to play the game. So far to a man, I think in all the competitions we've taken part in, whether we've had the same team 2 or 3 games on the bounce or whether we've been able to rotate, guys have been able to slot in and deliver a purposeful job. So that's an ongoing development for this team and this squad, and it's something that we're going to keep working and striving towards.
How pleased have you been with the defensive efforts this season? I mean, you must be pleased. You went 6 hours without conceding a try up until the one Connacht scored. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I think we're, I'm pleased with the stage of development that we're at in terms of our defensive work. I think, like all the coaching staff that we have here, we're looking at all aspects of our game. Defensively, there were some areas of the game against Connacht that were flagged up to me, and areas that we can keep improving. So there's huge parts of our game, whether it's with the ball, without the ball, or in our set piece, that we can improve on. And I think that's the exciting part as a coach, that we're able to be getting wins and putting in some good performances whilst not being the complete finished product. And that's something that we're always striving to be.
You still feel you've got growth, in you as a defensive side?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not going to tell you in which areas that growth needs to happen, but I went through the game with a lot of detail this week, and there's definite areas that our guys are going to have to be better prepared for when it really matters, which is that into that knockout sort of stage of footy. So we've got huge amounts of growth in us, and our defence is going to keep evolving.
Did you change attitudes or systems when you came in defence?
I think I said when I first joined the club, I looked over, when I spoke with Steve in the initial stages, I looked at all the tries that Ospreys had conceded over the previous season, and one thing that was never lacking in that was effort. I would have seen the worst of a team when they concede tries, but actually I saw the best in terms of their attitude to work hard for each other. So I knew culturally, and the environment and the effort that these guys put in was 100%. So, we looked at the structural side of things, and we hopefully I've given these guys a framework where they can make good decisions out in the field and make us a pretty difficult side to break down.
How much development have you seen in players like Dan Baker, for instance, and maybe Ollie Cracknell?
Well, I think in terms of their overall development, I think they've improved immeasurably in some of the decisions they're making. I think they're working within a framework which is suiting their strengths and weaknesses. But like I said, to a man, I think across the board the guys have shown a real aptitude to learn and develop and become better rugby players, and I think I've seen that with the ball or without the ball, and in terms of what we do every day on the training field is an approach to try and be better.
Because with Dan, it wasn't a criticism of him, but it was an observation. He was a good ball carrier, but perhaps he wasn't so busy in defence, and he seems to have improved on that this season.
I can't really comment on what his criticisms have, or the critiques of him have been in the past. So I can just comment on what I've seen, and he works within a framework of our defensive shape and structure, and he plays a really important part of that alongside 14 other guys who are out in the field, or with the new regulations sometimes 13 or 12. So there's opportunities within our framework for Dan to impose himself in the game, and like I said, if I had to give us a marking grade at the moment in terms of defence, I'd put us around a 7, and I think there's another 30% of improvements in us that we can take, and that's the exciting part for me.
Brad, even though you concentrate on defence, you must be pleased with the attacking ability this year, because another critique in years gone by, possibly there was a few times possibly when bonus points were on offer and were needed in the league, and they just went away. There seems to be an attitude from the word go as there was Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve and all the coaching staff and Griff in particular, we set out our team to play. It's not about us working separately as a coaching team. Everything we do with the ball has to be complemented without the ball. Without a functioning set piece, you don't get that front foot ball. Without a good defence, you possibly don't get the counter attack opportunities. So every part of our game is to try to complement each other. Obviously, we have our individual responsibilities, but I thought the way the guys, had the little setback when Connaught scored that try, to then go up the other end of the field, claim the restart and get the bonus point, could be a massive point in the big wash up. But I think that just shows our attitude and intent. And today in our meetings, we were looking at areas that we did well, but more importantly, looking at areas that we need to improve as a unit moving forward, because there's massive amounts of scope where we can tidy up our game.
Unfairly or fairly, the term Galacticos was used for a while for the Ospreys, given certain individuals and personalities that were here. How impressed have you been with the depth that you've touched upon and the youngsters that are being generated through the system?
I actually remember watching, when I was working at Bath and the Glaticos, and they were a great team. What impresses me about this team and the culture that Steve's put in place here is that I know it's a bit of a tag that the club use, and it is #myteam, and I think we are just working together. No players bigger than any other, no players hogging the limelight. It's about the whole squad turning up every day and working as hard and trying to improve themselves. And the work rate here, like I said, when I looked at some footage from last season, the work rate's always been here. And I think the attitude to come in and turn up every day and try and become a better rugby player is helping the development of those young players. And I think now the challenge for us is actually to keep pushing on and keep striving. And I think that's the challenge these guys are just gonna take with both hands.
You alluded to 12 or 13 players at the end of every game. We've had quite a weekend given the new laws that are in place now. Les Kiss post Scarlet's game said, "It is what it is." and the game will evolve, and we'll just have to adapt. Do you go along with that? Do you think everything will iron out in a few months?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think in these early stages, there's going to be loads of calls in every game that we can look at and say, well, that was a bit harsh, or that was fair, or that could have been a yellow. I think what you'll find is, in terms of evening out, I think the referees will start to have a greater empathy and a greater feel for, what is a reckless challenge, and then what's possibly more of a clumsy challenge. I think they'll find a balance between intent and accident. And, I thought our referee on the weekend, Lacey, did a great job in that, even though we lost Sam to the bin. I think it's going to balance out. I think there's still a few little tricky points that we're going to have to manage throughout. For example, when a ball carrier is, losing his feet or he's heading to deck early, and that it's really difficult for a 6'4" guy then to find an appropriate place to tackle. And I think that's where the empathy of the referee will come into the equation.
Will defensive coaches really have to earn their money in the next few years, given that if
we've always earned our money?
More so.
More so.
In the next, because obviously tackling is going to have to become lower. Offloading is more of a possibility. Do you look at different ways and means of counteracting that?
I think it's something we're going to have to be more aware of. I don't go down the side that our tackling is going to have to be necessarily lower. We're going to have to be more controlled in our shot selection and aware. And I think as a defence coach, I think a lot more emphasis, and we do place it here in the Ospreys a lot, is just on our technique and making sure that we're hitting into the right areas. So I don't necessarily think that the tackling's going to, all of a sudden, everyone's going to be tackling around the legs, because the game's not really evolved that way. But I think there's definitely going to have to be a lot more emphasis placed on correct technique and your shot selection. So there'll be definitely a lot of time spent on that.
If I can just ask you a non-Osprey question. Thomas Young, you came across him, been making a few headlines. What did you make of him as a player?
I think over the last 2 seasons, he's come on leaps and bounds. I think he's playing very well for Wasps at the moment. He's playing in a side that I think suits his style of game, where there's a lot of passes being made. There's a lot of support play, and it's a very attacking mindset. So I think he's doing tremendously well for Wasps, and I'm really, really pleased for him.
In terms of Europe, you must be eyeing up the record 6, where to put wins out of 6. Has that been on the minds of you guys?
Do you know, I didn't even know about it until you just mentioned it. No, not really. Numbers are numbers. I think they sometimes make a really nice story, but for us it's just about focusing in, as we have done today. We've got a big 2-week block now coming up in Europe. We want to win both those games, but to win both those games, we've got to turn up every day in training and get our detail right. Make sure that we try and become a better rugby player today than what we were yesterday. Try and improve on parts of the game that possibly weren't as good against Connacht, and keep evolving. And I think we do that. Hopefully that will look after itself, but ultimately it's just about us trying to perform well every day, and then hopefully the performance will come on the Sunday.
And for the game this weekend, is there any news on the squad?
None as yet. It's just early days yet. We've just come out of a big 3-game block over Christmas where we haven't had a lot of rest time. So, we're just going to assess the situation of the squad and the health of the squad, and then a decision will be made over the next day or so.
Is there anyone with knocks at all, or any concerns?
No one of real concerns. Everyone's pretty fit and ready to go.
What are you expecting from Lyon?
100%. I'm not 100% sure here. I know their game was postponed on the weekend, so I don't know if they're going to come over with a full strength or you know, part strength, or not sure. So all we can do is really prepare to get our house in order and prepare for whatever side comes over. They're going to be heavy, they're going to be physical, and we need to make sure that we're mentally right on it.
Be a record, wouldn't it, please? Good run.
If we win, yes.
Yeah, so that, I mean, I know you're saying it's just numbers, but it just shows your success early on to this block in the season, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think you know, those numbers and the success early on, it obviously comes out. But I think it's the building blocks that have been put in place along the way to get us here. You know, we can't get too carried away about thinking, oh, if we do this is going to happen. It's just about dealing with the now, getting that part right, looking at parts of our game where we need to improve on and be as best prepared we can be for this week, and also making sure that we keep evolving our game.
Can I ask one last question?
Yeah.
Ospreys are unbeaten against the French at the Liberty Stadium. How proud are you as a region of that record?
As you know, as proud as what I was after we beat Connacht on the weekend, as proud as I was when we went out to France and got our wins out there. Do you know what I mean? I think what gives me pride is when I know the players have gone out there and executed a game plan and delivered as well as they can, and regardless of the result, we were able to put in a performance. So I think it's important for us now that we focus on Lyon, we get our detail right, like I said, we get our intent, we have to go and match their physicality, and we put our performance out in the field. And I think if we do that, the rest will take care of itself.